Hi guys, this is just going to be a quick video going through the spreadsheet, a few sort of general rules, what a few bits and pieces do, what to pay attention to, what's important, and then I'll crack on with a few examples. As you know, you go to the Games Class website and then click on View in Full Screen. Often it takes a couple of seconds to load up. I'm Xbox, so I'll go to the Xbox page. As you can see here, the last updated was 8:05. I don't know if I'm recording my whole screen, but it's currently 8:09, so 4 minutes ago. That's perfect. These two columns here are the most important: the latest average and the latest low. The latest low is simply the lowest price on Footbin. If I click on Mbappe, you can see when I go here, it loads. We've got 131 and we've got 131. We've also got 134 below. The latest average is actually the average of these two prices, just because on some cards you can get crazy undercuts. So if I just took the low, could be a little bit misleading. As you can see here, we've got a huge difference on the PC prices between the lowest and then the third lowest. So a situation kind of like that can be useful to have these two columns. Can be useful to know what the actual price is on the market, but also when we do have one of those big undercuts, can be very useful to go sniping. The second most useful column is the average. The reason why, generally when you buy a card and you're looking to sell it, the average is a very, very good indication of what you'll easily be able to get a sale at. So if you can buy a card on the low and you can make a good amount of profit for selling it for the average, that's a perfect situation. You'll probably get a sale very quickly and then you can move on to another card and continue doing the same thing. Whereas if you buy a card and you're looking to sell it near the high, that can take many, many hours, can take days actually. Even when cards do go high, people don't have to be buying them. They can be one on the market for the absolute lowest price, but if it's so much higher than what it normally is, nobody's going to buy it. That often happens with icons, actually, especially the rarer ones. There can be ones sitting on the market that are the lowest. They can be there for hours and hours, but actually they're 200, 300k more than normal, so nobody is actually buying them. Anyway, what do I normally look for? I would normally just crack on and jump straight to the specials and start looking for some deals. Normally what I want to look for is, as I said, a nice price in the low, normally a green or a dark green or light green, and then an average where you would be able to make some nice profit. Generally, whenever I buy a lowish card, say like 15 to 70k, that kind of range, I always try and get Hunter or Shadow. Often it means you can squeeze a little bit more profit out and also lowers your risk if the price does drop a little. Your card is basically worth slightly more. As we all know, Shadow and Hunter sometimes worth 5k, so people prefer to buy one of those, even if it's 1, 2, 3k more than a card with basic or some other random chemistry style. So Cancelo and I've forgotten his name. Rafinha, that's the guy. Cancelo or Rafinha, these two actually look very good, 26k and 17k. Their average is way up. I would definitely go and buy them. Same here with Frankie. That looks a really, really nice price. I would just jump on the web app and buy that and then try to sell. Let's have a look through for some more examples. Son. Okay, looking at this, that we have 111 for the high and the low and the average. That tells me that he's finally hit his price range. As you can see, yesterday his high was a bit higher, but I think he may have just hit his price range of 110. I presume it's 110. It is exactly that. So if you ever see a situation like that where the low and the high are the same or basically the same, it basically means that they've hit their price range. So don't try to trade with that card. That's why this column here on the right can be very useful. The difference if you see a difference lower than 10%, you don't really want to touch the card. Every sale you lose 5%. So if you bought a card that only fluctuated 10%, you're relying on having that whole fluctuation, that whole 10% fluctuation. If you buy in the low and sell on the actual perfect high to make 5% profit, which is what we always look to try and do on cards. You can sometimes do a little less, just depends on the card and the situation in the market. Robertson, that's an okay one, 55k, 60k, you'd lose 3k, so you'd want to buy with a shadow and try to sell for 62k. Then you'd make 4 or 5k profit, not bad. I generally try to steer clear of cards that basically have no appeal, that aren't particularly good or useful or interesting. Sorry, Zachariah, but he's 13k for a reason. The average is 15k, but that is going to take a while to get a sale. I prefer to try and stick to something a little more meta. Alphonso Davies, for example, although again it's a very cheap card, it is usable. He's fast. He's got good links to buy in. So especially if you bought for a shadow, that would be a good one. Try and sell for 22k, potentially something like that. Let's have a look. I know for a fact these three guys are actually what their price range. Probably I should remove them from the spreadsheet. Let me know if you have any thoughts on that. Let's move on. Same here. This Rashford looks very nice actually. The fire set of cards are actually much rarer than the ice. I don't know if you guys remember, but when the ice came out, there was a fuck up by EA, and they ended up having to give out a whole load of the cards again, and therefore they got a massive extra supply. So the fire ones are actually much better to trade with. Their fluctuations are generally much bigger, and it'll be much easier to get sales. So this Rashford card for 90k, you're going to be able to sell it for 100k easy, which gives you your 5k profit. So that one looks like a really, really nice one. I would go on and buy that. Okay, just looking here, looking at the average, these cards are also at their price range, I expect. Let me know what you think. Probably it's a good idea to remove them because it's not good for anybody. Nkunku would be okay. 60k is the average. Buy with a shadow or a hunter, you're probably safe to make 5% profit. Just keep going. Even though this is green, I wouldn't touch it. The average is not high enough. Havertz not hugely hyped this year, so yeah, I would avoid that one. Looks like Tolisso has just hit his PR. He was higher last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I would avoid that one too. Again, Grealish, even though he's green, I would avoid. Not enough room. Tau, he has dropped to his PR, so I would avoid that one. The Tongan you could buy, but I would prefer to stick to a more meta player, somebody from a bigger league, better links. How many Portuguese leagues or Belgian teams do you actually see when you go into rivals or whatever? I would avoid. Here's an interesting one, probably a reasonable lesson. Although he is 800k and way down on his average, we're currently in League One team of the season, so everybody's trying to use French League cards. They're packing French League cards. It ends tomorrow. Everyone's potentially going to be moving on to Serie A cards, so I would probably avoid. Just because it's 800k, it's a lot of money, and I can see him dropping a good 100k next week. Dempsey, same kind of thing. We have MLS coming on the weekend, the MLS team this season, so here's a link for that. He was a lot cheaper a week ago, especially on Xbox. He's absolutely sky high. I think on PlayStation he is, let me see, Yeah, he's 100k. On Xbox, he's 240, I think it was. Yeah, 240. So there's a couple of reasons I would avoid that. Um, in this example, we're trying to flip, and we're trying to flip things that are relatively safe. We don't want to be buying a card that has other potential influences. So let's move on. Um, not enough room, really. Generally, I don't try to flip cards that are 2 million. You need them to move 100k to make any profit. It's just much more cost effective, much more economic to do multiple smaller trades. Um, Again, I also Harry Wilson could be an okay one, but generally I try not to touch the smaller leagues. As I said before, we want to try and stick to meta cards. What that means is popular, usable cards. Again, how many championship teams do you actually see in champs or rivals? I've never seen one, so I would avoid. Here's another interesting one to think about. DRB is actually low, very low for its average. Why? We just got Beauregard, probably pronounced his name wrong. Let's have a look here. The League One right mid as an SBC. Yep. And if you look here, pretty good stats to be honest. You stick an engine on him or shadow. If you want him on the wing, stick an engine. If you want him in midfield, stick a shadow. He can literally play anywhere on the pitch. And he has that strong link to the League One players that everyone's packing and trying to use this week. So Diaby, I would avoid, even though he's low. Um, he will drop and then bounce back at some point. However, it's best for me, I prefer to just play it safe and flip cards that have no extra reason to drop or rise or whatever. You just want to keep it as simple as possible because all these cards just have relatively natural fluctuations. So there's plenty of easy options rather than taking a risk on a card like this. So that's a bunch of good examples. If I get much lower, we're going to start going into the cards that are in packs, and I advise not to use a spreadsheet to flip them because they're in packs. They get affected by supply, and the spreadsheet is, as I said, better to use for those sort of natural fluctuations on cards that are out of packs and just fluctuate high to low just because of different amounts of people selling and buying them at different moments of the day. So thanks, guys. I hope that was helpful.